All right, here's an article from the CNN Opinion: What it means to be born black in Germany. Editor's note: Josephine Aprecu is an author and scholar of African studies. So, a course in a school or university that probably gets grants from the government. All right, continuing. As well as a consultant on diversity. Yeah, diversity, mass immigration, and etc., etc. The views expressed in this commentary are their own. Read more opinion at CNN. As I move around my hometown of Berlin, I'm frequently complimented on my excellent command of German, even after I've explained to the person I'm speaking to that I was born and raised here. All too often, the follow-up question I get, but tell me, where are you really from? So she's upset about that. Look, lady, Germany, its population, its native population, is ethnic Germanic, which means they're white race and their ethnicity is German. You can teach the language, you can teach the culture, the history, but you can't teach ethnicity or race. So whenever somebody sees you, they're going to assume you're a migrant. Alright, continuing. Many people in this country have no idea to what degree black people play a role in German history, that our pasts have been woven together for centuries. The historical circumstances under which black people came to Germany were marked by violence of enslavement, slavery, colonization, and war. The plight of black people in Germany and throughout Europe was shaped by the Berlin African Conference, held between November 1884 and February 1885. So that's what? More than 100 years ago? Yeah, get over it. When 14 mostly European nations discussed the division of the African continent. Scramble for Africa sounds familiar. And Germany was catapulted into the ranks of global colony powers. Territories occupied by Germany in whole or in part included the present-day African states of Namibia, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Cameroon, Tango, and Ghana. Didn't they lose that stuff in the... Yeah, they lost all that in the World War I. So again, 100 years ago. So again, get over it. That means for much of the 20th century, there was relatively little German contact with people from the African countries. Isn't that good? Because Whitey is evil, right? So one less Whitey group in Africa. In comparison to countries like France, Belgium, and Great Britain, which held onto their colonies until the arrival of those aforementioned GIs and the African migrants who came to Germany to work and to study, and who ultimately settled down here. I'd call that Pandora's box, but that's just me. Anyway, over the decades, black Germans have faced the difficult work of figuring out where we fit in. The African diaspora. It's hard to overstate the importance of the American poet Audre Lorde in supporting black Germans as they forge their sense of identity. And that's why that whole diversity thing is a mistake for places like Germany, because it has a native ethnic population. You see, you have these black Germans, they're trying to fit in, but they can't. Because again, you can't teach ethnicity or race. So what are they doing? They're making their own spaces, which is isolating them even more. In my opinion, the best thing you can do, immigrate to a place like the US or Canada, a place that was built on immigrants, because settlers and colonizers were immigrants. And also, America was built on slaves, like black slaves and Irish. But let's be real, nobody cares about the Irish. I mean, not even the Irish. Just look what's happening to Ireland right now. They were brutally occupied for hundreds of years by the English/British, and when they get their freedom back, what do? They willingly give it up. In her seminars, Lord created a much needed permission structure for black women. Oh, now you're separating men and women. Yeah, okay, that's even worse. Who for the first time were able to share with other people like them the racism they had experienced. So women experience more racism. Yeah, okay. In doing so, she helped black activists in Germany organize and network with each other. Yeah, they're isolating themselves from the rest of Germany. Yeah, okay. Lord's own intersectionality experience as a queer black. Oh. So she has even more privilege than the black woman because she's queer. Gotcha. Provided a template for many of us, allowing us to widen the aperture of possibilities for people of African descent and helping many of us construct our own evolving identities. Okay. The leftism is strong with this one. Well, yeah, of course, because she's a author and scholar of Afro studies and diversity, if I remember correct. What about today in Germany? As in the United States, there are studies that reveal the many forms racism takes in everyday life. Because, everything's Whitey's fault. Black students receive lower grades for similar academic performance. Yeah, there's a simpler answer to that. It's not racism, though. Black patients are taken less seriously in the healthcare system, and they are considered to be less sensitive to pain. Um, if she provided a source on that, I'd look into that, but she didn't. She just said that, so I don't know. Racism here also leads to reduced access to housing and jobs in the labor market. Now, I think I know what she's talking about. Is she talking about gangbangers and such? How people perceive black people to be gangbangers? Yeah, that is kind of racist, but black people commit what? 50% of the violent crime in the States? It's a negative stereotype, yes, but it's kind of accurate. It really sucks if you're one of the few black people that isn't said person. However, people who provide housing and jobs and things of that nature, they have to look into a person's background, right? And this, of course, is called a background check. So if a person has a huge criminal rap sheet, no one's going to give them a house or a job. And like I said earlier, the African American community commits like 50% of the violent crimes, if I'm not mistaken. So they're doing it to themselves. And then they turn around and blame Whitey, which in turn turns Whitey against them. I used to be all for diversity, but now I see it as a tool that the powers that be use to divide the white population, to sow division, because as the age-old saying goes, divide and conquer. Also, hugely important are two organizations of black Germans, the ISD and the Black People in Germany, and the blah 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 blah. And of course, black German women. So again, they're dividing black men from black women. That seems kind of asinine to me, but hey, whatever. Which were founded during the time that Audre Lorde, probably said the name wrong, was teaching in Berlin and continue to be vibrant and active. So it sounds like this Andre Lorde really brainwashed a whole whack of people to quite literally divide a group of people, because that's what she said. There's a group for black people, and then there's a group for black women. Okay. The ISD, which has chapters across Germany, holds an annual weekend-long retreat of black Germans. So yeah, there you go again. They don't want to be part of Germany. They want to be in their own blackness with their retreats and stuff. Black only this and that. From across the country, with a number of social and cultural events held. ISD is also involved in organizing protests, as it did during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations after the death of George Kirby. Yeah, so again, you're having protests and demonstrations for a guy who was driving while impaired because he was on fentanyl. Really? Okay, now we're getting into her relationship of being black. My point of reference, and in a way, my place of longing, is no longer just my father's home country. So, what of her mother? Well, we'll get into that shortly. Being black in and of itself has become my place of belonging because no matter where I am in the world and despite all my differences, there is an invisible thread that connects us. And that brings me to Black History Month. I didn't know being black was a place, but according to this woman, it is. Being black in and of itself has become my place of belonging. Oh, okay, whatever. She goes on to talk about Black History Month, but I kind of want to cut this down because this is going way too long, so we'll get into the next bit of the article, which is her family. In my own case, I was born in 1986 to a white German mother and a black father from Ghana. Strange how she calls herself black, but she omits the fact that she has a white mother. It's funny how they always do that. It's kind of like how Obama was elected. He was touted as the first black president, and yet he's half black. And again, he himself had a white mother. My parents met at a nightclub popular with black American GIs in Berlin. To hear my mother tell it, if you wanted to hear some really good dance music and do more than stand all evening with your back against the wall, the clubs frequented by black soldiers were where you had to go. So wait, did Tyrone smash and dash? Just curious. The same year I was born, a seminal work about black Germans, showing our colors. Afro-German women speak out. So again, Afro-German women. Separating the Men was published. My mother read it that same year, knowing that my experience in Germany would be different from hers. Yeah. She understood that I would experience racism and that she never had encountered and that she would be my only protection from it for a long time. So again, she's saying her mother is her only protection from it. What about her father? I'm going to go out on a limb and say he wasn't in the picture. Anyway, moving on. The book has become something of a Bible to black people in this country, trying to understand what it means to be part of a broader diasporic community. Okay, I gotta Google diasporic or whatever that word is. Being or relating to any group that has been dispersed outside its traditional homeland, even involuntary or by migration. In recent years, large number of people have fled from Kurdistan, and Kurds now make up a broad range of diasporic communities around the world. Okay, so two things. This woman, one, she's half white, so she hasn't been dispersed or displaced from her traditional homeland because she's half white, right? Now, imagine being her mother. Well, I can't imagine being her mother because birds of a feather flock together. But if I were, I would be rather upset because my daughter doesn't even recognize my half of her. the white German half. And, they never do, right? That's kind of sad. Again, why is she also her black half is her father? And again, she said that her mother would have to protect her. Where was her father? And second, again, she wasn't dispersed from her traditional land. But if she feels like she was dispersed from her traditional land of Ghana or whatever, go back there. Nothing's stopping you. She's a author and scholar, so she probably has a lot of money. Okay, wow, 16 minutes, way longer than I wanted. I really got on a roll there. To summarize this and close this up, this woman's complaining about being an outsider. Yeah, that's how I feel. Why? I'm a white person living in Canada. According to the government, that means I'm not Native American, even though I was born and bred in Canada. Anywho, take care out there in Clown World.